Tonight's theme is doubt. And that I think for many of us was a tough one to think of a story for. Like what, even though doubt plays such a prevalent role in all of our lives all of the time, it's something that we try to overcome, and it can manifest in many ways, and it can really lead to some beautiful things when we are able to overcome it. So that was my spin on doubt when I started thinking about my story for tonight. I wanted to tell a story that somehow reflected how I and we all can overcome doubt. So my story is called The Art House. You all know this house with broken windows, the doorknob doesn't always work right, the faucet's leaky, there's paint running along the walls. I'm talking splatter paint. I'm talking words written down the hallway. You know, they say inspiring things, like believe in yourself, create art, love, peace, not war, things like that. It's an art house. It's a house full of musicians, a house full of artists, and I was going to be moving into one. I was turning 21 and I was moving into an art house. The trouble was, I wasn't an artist. So how could I move into an art house? Now, let me explain, because most of you probably know me as an artist, and I do call myself an artist now. But I grew up doing theater from the age of 4. In fact, I remember my very first role. I got to play Jack in Jack and the Beanstalk. My best friend was the giant, and he missed his cue, and I let him know that he missed his cue. I did theater throughout my entire life, but it was mixed in with a bunch of other things like football, scouts, etc. And it wasn't until my junior year that I decided to focus almost entirely on theater. My mom was always supportive of my creative side, but she made sure that I knew that I wasn't that good. She made sure that I knew that I was meant to be a doctor, not an actor. In fact, she went so far as to tell me that my girlfriend was going to make it as a performer and that I wouldn't. So I needed to figure something else out. But I didn't let that deter me. I went to Case Western and I studied theater and I studied pre-med. My mom was supportive about that. Because of the pre-med. She was like, all right, yeah, you can study the theater and maybe you can become a doctor who acts on the side. That wasn't my dream. And I knew it. And a year after I started school at Case Western, I ended up leaving that school and going to Mount Union. And there's a whole story in there as well. But when I went to Mount Union, I also stopped acting. I took a couple theater classes when I went there, but it just started not to feel right. Maybe it wasn't the right program. I'm not sure. But I started to veer away from theater and started to venture into business and political science and all of these things, which are also artistic, but not in the same way. And it was after a really rough breakup that I talked about right here, actually in May, that I needed to find something to inspire myself because I was really going down a weird path. I was starting to really work in business, and all of a sudden all of my creative energy was disappearing. And that's when I got to move into this art house. And it was an art house because it was, and I talked about it the first performance here, it was a house full of 2 musicians, Jeffrey and Kevin Clem, and one magnificent director named Benjamin Rexroad. And then there was me. The random guy who supported them, but really didn't do anything. I wasn't even acting. So we started having these nights where we would party illicitly. And the nights would always end with the musicians jamming out and Benjamin scribbling frantically in his notebook. He'd be writing poems or something, the next great American novel, whatever he was writing, his great ideas down. And then there was me. I felt so awkward. Like, what am I supposed to do? Maybe dance to this music? Like, that's not artistic. So it all culminated on this one evening where all this was happening. Same story, musicians are playing, Benjamin's frantically scribbling. I did what I always did. I snuck away. I wanted to be by myself. I didn't know what my art was. I didn't know what my calling was, why I was in this house full of artists. So I went outside and I ran. And I ran and I ran. I got all the way down North Rose. I turned around, I ran back. And it was in the middle of running back that all of a sudden this realization came to me. My art is running! Well, next morning I woke up and realized that was stupid. My art was not running. But Benjamin and I went on a walk. And I got to talking and I told him about all my doubts, about how I didn't know if I should even live in this apartment anymore because I was surrounded by all these artistic people, and what was my contribution? What was my art? And Benjamin started talking about theater and how I clearly was passionate about it, even if I wasn't acting at the moment, and how we were about to start a theater company together. And he said, "You're wrong. You are an artist. You're an actor." And I said, "Actors aren't artists." And he said, "Yes, they are. They're poets with their bodies." And it was that suddenly sparked a realization that I was an artist. My art form was movement. It wasn't running, it was movement. I was an actor. I was an artist in the words and form of theater. And I did belong in the art house.